Movie sign. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in to the November virtual Cranbrook meeting of the Warren Astronomical Society. Like to call this meeting to order. See a lot of friendly faces out there with all your lovely Zoom backgrounds that my underpowered MacBook Air cannot allow me to match. We have as our In the News in the Sky presenter tonight, Adrian Bradley, member of the University Lowbrows, as well as the WASP and the current president of GLAC. So,
how's everyone doing? Oops,
take
I
away,
jumped in on you. I'm sorry, Diane. All right, so we go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully everyone's doing well, had a good Halloween, and also staying safe. And if you haven't voted, please do so. The election tomorrow is the deadline, of course, election day. So I'm going to start with a few stories that are in the news. Water on the moon is more common than we thought. Most of you should have heard of this because I believe this came out last week, and scientists have been finding signs of water on the moon since 2009, and in 2018 confirmed the presence of water ice on the lunar surface. Now, one of the differences in the discovery is that there were some sunlit places that also had water molecules that they found. I am scrolling slowly through the presentation at space.com if you want to read the entire story. But there's what's interesting about it. Neil deGrasse Tyson has mentioned to a group that asked the question, what's so important about finding water on the moon? Haven't we already found some water, and who cares? The point is, if we want to go into space, we want to go to Mars, and we don't have to carry water with us. We can mine it on the moon, get our resource there as the puddle jump to Mars. So this becomes a very important story. And, here we're talking the other study led by Hain, researchers using this lunar reconnaissance orbiter, the orbit around the moon, to study the distribution of cold traps where water could exist, not just transiently, but permanently. So this story basically shows there's water on the moon, how it got there. If you think the Decepticons put it there, that's fine. It's more likely comet or asteroid impacts, comet impacts, where that could be bringing water. But it made for an interesting story last week, and it will be ongoing. Now let's move to the Europe's Philae comet lander made a second touchdown in a spooky spot, Skulltop Ridge. And if you can see it on your screens, this ridge, you can make out a skull face where it landed. And I'll read a part of this. This image shows the outline of Skulltop Ridge, the second landing site on Comet 67P, Churyumov-Gerasimenko for the Rosetta spacecraft's Philae lander, which set down all the way back on November 12th, 2014. We knew it had bounced twice. It didn't land safely, and now they've found the second place. And it's an interesting rock formation. So I found this interesting. And let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, it mentions here, Philae couldn't snag enough sunlight in its final location to recharge its second battery. So, as you may remember, it collected some science data and then died a horrible and tragic death. So, they were able to retrieve the data, but now Philae is sitting there on the comet all by itself. Let's see, another good story. NASA's Mars rover Perseverance is now officially halfway to the red planet. So NASA Mars 2020 Perseverance rover reached its halfway point, 146.3 million miles, further than it is from here to LA, on its journey to the red planet's Jezero crater on October 27th, 2020. That was a week ago. a little less than a week ago. The Mars 2020 rover Perseverance, which launched on July 30th, has now traveled 146 million miles. Just read it. Half of the total required to reach the red planet. So considering that this is a rover, imagine if it's humans. We've had a discussion in our group about human space flight to Mars. And the main difference with this is the rover doesn't need the type of resources that we need. So the fact that it's only halfway there, imagine just how much food and water we would be drinking on our way, which is part of the reason that story about the moon is important, because having to take it in steps right now is the easiest way, unless we develop a way to go in stasis, which then would be a way to reach it if you just go in stasis until you wake up in Mars. So this discusses the crater that Perseverance will land at, Jezero 18th, and what it would do, studying the area's geology and climate. And if I'm not mistaken, there it is, the small helicopter named Ingenuity. We will see if this helicopter will fly. That will be
the Mars
interesting
copter.
if it works. So that is, you could read it here. That's one of the real cool things. I'm looking forward to finding out if it works, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. So click this link. I'm not going to click it right now because I'm going to move on to my talk about, which I had hoped to put in reader form, but I obviously did not. Because the ads, there was an ad for a Space Force $2 bill when I was looking this up, and I want to spare everybody having to see that ad. More than half of all sun-like stars in the Milky Way. This was one that I believe came out today. They wrote this article, more than half of all sun-like stars in the Milky Way may have a habitable planet. Now, this story does not include the red dwarfs that have been discovered in the planets around there. And it goes on to say, mainly because we're not so sure how habitable red dwarfs are. Even if a planet's in the habitable zone of a red dwarf, it's likely tidally locked. So how life would work around the red dwarf is it's still a bit of a mystery, even if it's possible. And with the activity of red dwarfs and solar flares, atmospheres and habitable zones may be blown away at any given time. But this study talks about G-class stars, so stars that are solar analogs. And I know that there are a couple of solar twins out there, but this study was about all of the G-class stars, not just the G2V. I think the sun is a G2V classification. So here are the numbers. On average, each sun-like star in the Milky Way likely harbors between 0.04 and 0.09 rocky planets in its habitable zone, just the right range of orbital distances. So it's been rounded up to 1 per, well, for half of the sun-like stars, it's estimated there's 1 Earth-like planet. So this is becomes exciting, of course, depending on whether or not we can get the James Webb Space Telescope up to do some more observation of these systems, to look for more of these stars and to look to see if we can find the signatures of the planets similar to our signature, which shows all the elements for water. It shows the carbon, the oxygen, the spectroscopy that has to be done in order to determine if it is indeed a candidate, if the exoplanet is indeed a candidate of an Earth-like analog. So the article goes on to link you to talk about habitable zones and the research. I'll mention before closing this out, the Drake equation. This is this is something that I started reading and we'll have to go back to. They use that to estimate the number of communicable civilizations. So that is for in the news. That concludes my segment. Any questions about it? Space.com again, where I found these and other stories. And now it's time to go to talk about what's up in the night sky.
Adrian,
Yes.
you said if anybody had a question or comment to make it.
Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned the Drake equation.
Yes.
I won't go into detail here, but I gave a presentation on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And it has a lot to say about how to correctly interpret the Drake equation. If anyone wants to watch that presentation, go to YouTube and do a search for my last name, Parton, and Warren Astronomical Society. I have radically different thoughts about how to correctly interpret the Drake equation than most people have.
So that's
my
very
comment.
interesting. I'll have to do that. Here's the article that was linked about, and just looking at the titles, they try to describe, as I'm sure you did, what the variables are, and then they go into talk about the exoplanet discovery suitable for life. So they're trying, and then the red dwarf stars. Here's the part on red dwarfs. I will definitely check that out, Dale, and then make some comparisons. I think it's interesting because I'm sure this is an ongoing study as hopefully our technology gets better and we can find more signatures of exoplanets. And we've got a couple that are directly imaged, but I imagine we would image a lot more exoplanets directly. Again, getting the James Webb Space Telescope in the sky. I don't want to say the air, but getting it into orbit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bigger topic than we can discuss here and now. I'm just saying, if you or others are interested, the presentation is on YouTube.
Sounds good. All right, so quickly, so we can move on, I will go into what's up in the night sky. This is the sky as we speak, and this is the dark sky park as we speak. As you can see, Saturn and Jupiter are getting closer together in the night sky. As it turns out, in December on the 21st, there will be a conjunction. It'll be difficult for us to see it, but I'm going to change the time to, in fact, if I continue to change the time any further, look at what happens. It goes on. This is a typical horizon, and it's on 12/21 that Saturn and Jupiter are supposedly so close together that the two merge to our eyes view and look like one star. But it'll be so low on the horizon. I would have to change the horizon here, and I'm sure I can do that. I think is the way to do it. Instead, though, I recommend for you imagers out there, I recommend getting an image of this right around now, 11/29, near the end of November, as they're getting closer. It'll still be a pretty spectacular image if you can get it closer. Lake Hudson Dark Sky Park has a high western horizon, and that's one of the places I would recommend trying to get an image of Jupiter and Saturn close by in the same field. It only gets they only get closer and closer as you go along. So let's go back to current time. So what's up in the sky now? You see Saturn, Jupiter, all this Milky Way hunters. The Milky Way is descending. If I go back and put the atmosphere in, you see it's dark enough now, but essentially the core of the Milky Way is disappearing quickly. If Aquarius is your favorite sign, then now's the time to search for objects in Aquarius. Here are the constellations, and I'll put the constellation lines up as well. So here's how the night sky looks. Let's move the night sky along a little bit. Let's see where L. So here's the night sky, and here are some of the constellations that you can begin looking for. We have the Taurids. There's the moon tonight, but the Taurids are out in the sky, and the Orionids, as Orion rises, the Orionids are coming in. So for Dave Levy, I know you're out there. The meteors, there are a couple of meteor showers to follow. The Taurids, if I'm not mistaken, are typically brighter. I needed to look up the, and I apologize for this, look up the frequency of the Taurids. Let's see. Well, between September 10th, 20th November, so their southern Taurids are fading. So the winter circle is coming. And as I saw, Doug Bach posted a joke where the astronomers are smiling when the winter circle's coming up. And thank you, Diane. The Taurids have a very broad spread, so anywhere in the sky you may see something radiating from a Taurid. And then here are the Orionids, although they're in Gemini. Astronomers love it when the winter comes, because it means that all of this activity here in the winter circle becomes visible. Everyone else hates it because it's cold. I don't mind it. I was out there last year, 12 degrees, trying to start my imaging of the Orion Nebula. And there'll be, so for those of us that want to shoot at this region again, it's back, and astronomers, visual astronomers, astrophotographers will be staring at it again. There are a couple of other things to shoot at in Monoceros, and of course, Sirius the Hunting Dog, M41, which is right here. They're all coming back. So we're in a transition period where the fall constellations are giving way to the winter constellations. So hopefully we'll get some clear skies soon. There goes the summer triangle. The last of it dives into the horizon. So if you get a chance, get out, look at the night sky, wear your coat, and enjoy the wonders of the night sky. I did fail to mention Mars, and I should. Even though it's past opposition, it's still a very bright target and still a very beautiful target. It will look just about like this in perhaps the biggest of telescopes. It's going to look roughly like this. These are the features that are out there tonight, and as you know, as it'll continue to rotate, you'll look at other features as it goes along. So that's my report. Questions, comments are all welcome. And thank you for indulging me in my report.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, if you've got questions for Adrian, throw them in the chat so he can answer in text, because we do need to move along because we've got elections tonight. So,
all right, I'm going to get out of there then.
Back to normal order of business. I am Diane Hall, currently your president. In brief presidential business, we have the Distinguished Service Awards. We've received some nominees. We have not yet made a decision on who will get the awards for the year. If you have a nominee for the Distinguished Service Awards, ranging from the Bob Watt Hands-On Award, the Larry Kalinowski Beloved Infrastructure of the Club Award, the E. John Searles Pinnacle of Service to the WAS Award. Send them to the board so that we can make our selection in time to distribute awards in December. Awards, of course, are normally given out at the banquet. This will be a virtual banquet. We have Brother Guy Consolmagno, the Vatican Observatory celebrity astronomer, will be our guest speaker, thanks to Bob Tremblay. So we will have a banquet. We cannot provide you food, drinks, or live music, but we can provide you camaraderie, a year review, the award presentation, and a night with Brother Guy. So thank you, Bob, for setting that up, and we are looking forward to it. It will be its normal time on the Thursday following the December quote-unquote Cranbrook meeting. The other thing is that it's calendar time. Jonathan Cade and Bill Beers are this year's calendar committee. If you have pictures, art, drawings of astronomical things or earth science, weather type things, send them in, preferably from this year. Doesn't have to be from this year. We expect some great images of Mars, great images of Comet Neowise, but we take a lot of things. So send them in to Bill and Jonathan so that we can get another spectacular calendar in everybody's hands for January. And I will pass it to our first Vice President, Dr. Dale Parton.
Thank you, Diane. Well, at our next meeting on Thursday, November the 10th, the 19th, our own Diane Hall will be speaking on the topic Unsung Historical Observatories. Then on Monday, December the 7th, we will have a short presentation, first of all, by Mark O'Malley, entitled Werner von Braun, The Rest of His Story. You may recall that he got started on that story back in June. He's now coming back by popular demand to finish that story about Werner von Braun. That'll be a short presentation on December the 7th. Then Joe Tocco will have a full-length presentation on the classic topic, buying your first telescope. Who hasn't been asked by somebody, what should I buy? I think we need to cover that topic every so often. I don't know how long it's been, 2 or 3 years probably, for those among us that may be relatively new. Finally, I'm always looking for speakers for future meetings. Right now, I have openings in the March through May timeframe. I need short presentations as well as long presentations. So please let me know if you have something, even if it's a glimmer of an idea for a presentation. Okay, thank you. Diane, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dale. I will now pass things to Riyadh, our observatory chair.
Thank you, Diane, and hello, everyone. I visited the observatory yesterday. Everything is in good shape. Both buildings are okay, doing well, and the equipment is fine. Did a little bit of cleaning. Need to do a little bit more work on the outside to kind of try to block the wasps from getting in. Maybe before the spring, of course. And other than that, everything seems to be fine, and the observatory is there waiting for us and misses us. That's all I have. Thank you, Diane.
We miss it too, Riyadh, especially with all the great things that have happened in the sky this year.
Yeah.
All right, let's pass things to our secretary, Glenn Wilkins.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had to unmute. Thanks, Diane. The minutes for October have been presented and are included in the current issue of the WASP. And everything is fine. Looking forward to the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Glenn has set a new standard for accurate, detailed minutes going in on time. And Mark, Treasury.
Good evening, everybody. So since last month, not a lot of changes. We're still at 93 current members. Just real quickly, we've taken in so far this year $2,006. We spent $1,769. We have $21,274 in the bank, 0 uncashed checks, and $585 in cash, totaling $21,859. Expenses since last week, we had our club insurance premium come through at just over $1,100. Paid some meetup fees, and we had some reimbursements for envelopes and stamps and batteries for our hand controller at Stargate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Bob Tremblay at Outreach.
Hi, all. Well, I have to amend my outreach report in the WASP. Ken Burton actually did do a presentation. Ken, can you say who that was to? Are you there?
Yeah, the Wyandotte station wanted me to do a quick television thing for on Fritz Wiki. It hasn't been put on the air yet. Steve Whitty is one of the people that's putting it together to meet what I interviewed with what's his name? Casey, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway,
Glazer?
Yeah, Glazer, right. I was talking to him, and he interviewed me about what Wiki was like, and personally and also otherwise. And you've all seen that presentation here, and it went off well. And it's a good thing. I don't know where to get a hold of it, but Steve will give it to you, and I'll give you the site to go to see the presentation.
Right.
It was question and answer.
Yeah, if I get that site, I'll include that link in the next outreach report.
I think it should be interesting. Yeah,
it's the Ford Amateur Astronomy Club's Astronomy for Everyone channel. So
Yep. That's easy enough.
Yep.
Other than that, I'm going nuts not being able to set my telescope up for any of my neighbors, and I'm sure everybody else is too. The OSIRIS-REx asteroid sample return mission, which I'm an ambassador for, has successfully taken its sample, and maybe too successfully. When I saw the picture of the little bits of asteroid floating away from the sample head, I emailed Dolores Hill and I said, "Are you guys going to put that away soon?" And the next day it was away, and I think they got more than they asked for, and that's awesome. I also wrote her and said I want a piece, which I don't think is ever going to happen, but so other than that, if anybody's going to be doing any outreach, please let me know. One of the things I'd like to do with GLAC, and if anybody wants to give me any suggestions about this, that would be great, is I'd like to start plugging the GLAC member clubs on a weekly or monthly basis. Just here's one of our members, here's what they do. I'd like to highlight clubs, and right now, our GLAC's major focus is doing astronomy at the beach. I'd like to see us do something much smaller 6 months on the other side of it, but we'll see what that is with COVID going on. Other than that, that's it for outreach.
All right. Publications.
The WASP is up, despite me not doing anything for it. I would urge you urgently before the night is out to check out the issue and especially to read the last word.
Very good, Jonathan. All right. As far as subgroups go, Captain Solar Marty is not here tonight, but I can tell you the sun is boring. I will put the link in the chat room, and I have no interest in discussing it further. Check out the total lack of sunspots there. It's boring. The hands-on group, of course, is meet at your own leisure and look at things when you can. Discussion group is gone remote as a contingency plan for when we cannot do a remote open house. And that leaves the history group says nothing to report other than what is chronicled in the WASP. And that leaves the Astronomical League.
Nothing doing.
Nothing due until January? Okay, Bob, what are you showing us here? Yes, we do have an active region coming around. That is correct.
This
So
is the sun in 171 nanometers, and that is, you're seeing the corona, and down in the lower left, there's a lot of loops. That would be something that would be some active region coming into view, and in the upper right is probably those plasma indirection little tornadoes that are actually rotating out of view. But there is something in the upper left there that looks like it could turn into an active region. Lots of coronal loop activity. That's really pretty.
it is a very pretty thing. Too bad my my scope really doesn't get all that lovely stuff across. Okay. We now have about 9 minutes where we can entertain observing reports and other astronomical adventures before we go into our short presentation, which is, of course, the annual election. So, if you have an observing report, throw the word stack in the chat and I will call on you. That way it will be a little less chaotic. I know some of you have stuff. I see your Facebook feed. S stack, like stack of pancakes. Jeff McLeod beat Adrian Bradley to the punch. Jeff.
Well, I'm more curious if anyone else saw what I saw. So Janelle and I were driving down 696 yesterday at around, I think, 6:30. And we saw a bright green flash in the sky. It wasn't clear. It was pretty overcast at the time, but pretty darn bright. And I had to assume that it was either a transformer blowing or some sort of astronomical phenomena. I tried looking up some news sources and didn't really get anywhere.
What day was that?
Yesterday.
It was okay.
Yesterday.
No.
Yep.
Yesterday. No.
And it was around the Farmington Hills area.
Nope. I'm in Belleville.
Haven't heard any like big news about like another fireball, so I'm kind of leaning towards it not being. I mean, it was nowhere near as bright as the the bolide from a few years ago, but and it was really colorful.
Chances are it was with the high wind that we had yesterday, it probably was a transformer blowing up. And green is what you will see from copper when it turns to plasma.
Well, what time was that?
It was about 6:30, give or take 5-10 minutes.
Would that be 225 UT?
I have to do enough math in my day-to-day life. I'm not converting to UT.
Because there was something, AMS Meteors has something 11-1 at 225 UT seen in Michigan and Ohio.
I wouldn't say that this object was big or bright enough to be seen in Ohio. It was pretty local. I mean, and also it looked fairly low. It was hard to tell, like, if it looked like it was coming up through the clouds, like if it was the light from a transformer or coming down from above. But
wow.
I don't know. If I had to put $100 on it, I'd go with Riyadh with the transformer.
Yeah.
I think that's the time frame is an hour off, Bob. I think we're only 5 hours behind, not 6.
Okay, because at 1:15 UT, it's something in Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different states. So, yikes.
Yikes, indeed.
46 reports on that one.
All right. Well, if
That
you
would have
have
been
any,
Donald Trump that was in 7 different states at the same time.
the only election we're talking about tonight is the WAS election. Thank you very much, ladies and gents. Okay, so if anybody has a lead on Jeff's object, let us know, and let Jeff know especially. Adrian's got something to stack, and then David Levy.
So, because it's David Levy, I'm going really, really quick. Just a quick share of my screen. Whoops. So, did some imaging, and this was Orion at 4:30 in the morning, standing straight south, and that's how overcast it was getting. It felt good to be standing out in the cold. So that the moon was 99.9% full. That's why I went and observed it at that time and not necessarily Halloween. The Halloween moon is actually a waning gibbous. But as most of you know, I went moon, and there you see a bit of it missing here in the sky. And since Orion was back, I took this shot. I haven't processed it yet. I find this interesting because there's Orion's, there's the belt, and you can see a bit of the Orion Nebula juxtaposed against the trees. To me, that's kind of an unusual shot because it's not something you normally see, something earthbound and then the Orion Nebula. To me, that's something that says, well, that's how big the Orion Nebula actually is. You can take a shot of it, see some of its detail, and from basically a tree that's close by, it looks like it's shortening the distance. So I found this shot pretty interesting. This rather light camera, and I got more work to do, better shots to get with that. But I found some of the shots I took interesting, and I also found it very gratifying to be standing out in the cold and pointing something at the night sky again. So that's my report. Looking forward to doing some more observing as the winter circle comes back in focus.
All right. I like the clouds in the Orion one. We've got David Levy on deck, then Bob Berta, and then I think we'll have to switch on over to the short presentation. Take it away, David.
Thank you. And first of all, Adrian, that was a beautiful picture. That first one you showed of Orion. I really love that.
Thank you.
The observing here in Arizona has been moderately better than it has been in Michigan. I've been out each night in the last few nights, and we're getting ready for the Taurid meteors, which I'm hoping to be able to get some in the next few nights. Some sources say that the maximum of the southern Taurids is tomorrow night. Other sources say it's not until the 5th. So I think I'm going to try both nights if possible. Although tomorrow I think I'm going to be busy doing a few other things. Anyway, now for the poetry. As I said during the informal part, this next poem is a ditty that I wrote myself and will certainly prove to all of you that I am not a poet. A small synagogue exists in Green Valley. From there we could see Comet Halley. One cold Nidre night, a comet was bright, not Halley, but we still were happy. See, that was pretty terrible. And the next one I think we're all familiar with was written by Reginald Buller, published in Punch first in 1923, and it's called Relativity. There was a young lady named Bright, whose speed was far faster than light. She set out one day in a relative way and returned on the previous night. And back to you, Diane, after this unfortunate observing report.
Limericks. Clean ones. All right. Well, yeah, if we get any Taurids, I'll be happy. That is a meteor shower I do not spend enough time with.
Yeah,
So,
we'll have to be sure not to let there be any limericks for Mark O'Malley's presentation. Only those of you who have read Thomas Pynchon know why.
yeah. Okay, Bob, you've got some pictures for us.
Yeah, I have a couple pictures. See if I can turn on my share here. Here. Let's see if this will work. Can you see that?
Yep, there we go.
Yeah. Actually, it's not. It's they're not next to each other in that order, but they are three separate pictures. If you remember last year's calendar, I had the two on the right, which was M16 and M17 in the Hubble pellet. And so now this time I added the sharpness 254 on the left. And this is the Hubble pellet, which is not visual light. It's actually converted down to H alpha, oxygen 3, and sulfur 2, I believe it is. And you can blow those up a little bit. If I go this way, you can see what they look like. So you can see they're pretty interesting. This is with my 6-inch Apple refractor. Okay, can you see that, everybody?
Yes.
Now the next one I have, let's see if I can find it here. Here, this is the Pelican Nebula, and this is in H alpha, and these were taken all from my backyard in Macomb Township. The advantage of the narrowband imaging is you can take pictures even with the moon out and light pollution, moderate light pollution, etc. So you can see, you can get pretty good detail in that as you move in. Like so. I think it's pretty cool. So that was some of my stuff I did during the COVID lockdown during the summer. Okay, that's it for me.
Very nice, very nice. I realize that those are pretty epic pieces, but hopefully some percentage thereof can end up in our calendar.
Yep,
Diane?
yep.
Yes.
Hey, Bob, when did you start doing narrowband?
Well, I've always had narrow band. I have on my my S-Big camera that I use all the time. I have one filter wheel is RGB and H alpha, and the other filter wheel is all narrow band, so I can combine them. I do the Hubble pellet, which is SHO. Those are those three combinations, and you remap them to red, green, and blue.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Well, it is time for the election. I will hand things over to our nominating committee, specifically the person of Ken Burton, to administer the election in accordance with our bylaws. Take it away, Ken.
Robert, I think you have to unshare your screen.
Yeah,
Please, you can do that here. Hold on a second here.
I'm trying to.
Okay, hold on. Yeah.
We're all back.
Ken, you are the presenter.
Ken's got
Take it away.
He's muted.
Ken, you're on mute.
There you go. You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
I'm
let's-
muting everybody else.
Good.
Unmute yourself when you're ready to volunteer as treasurer.
Okay. Can you hear me still, everybody?
Yes.
Can everybody can hear me? Okay, good.
Yes. Carry on.
All right, there we go. Let's get started. This is the Warren Astronomical Society election for 2021. The officers is section 0501's titles and qualifications of officers. The principal officers of the corporation shall be the president, first and second vice president, secretary, treasurer, outreach director, and publications director. However, the board may from time to time appoint such additional officers as is deemed appropriate. Can somebody mute, please? Somebody's still not muted. Qualifications for officers: they must be at least 18 years of old, have been a member in good standing for 1 year, must maintain his or her membership in good standing during the term of office. In section 5.02, election and term of offices, the nomination committees, consisting of 1 to 3 members who are not seeking nomination, shall be named by the board of directors. All its meetings preceding and the annual meeting and election, the committee shall nominate persons who are willing and duly execute at least one office defined as Article 5. The officers shall be elected annually by acclaim or by secret ballot only for contested positions. At the annual meeting of the membership, each officer shall hold office until his or her successor has been elected and installed on January 1st of the following year, or until the officer becomes incapacitated, resigns, or is removed. Section, let me just do one thing real quick here. That's good. I like that. Section 5.03, the president shall preside at all of the meetings of the board of directors as chairperson of the board of the corporation, and shall have such other powers and duties as may be assigned to him or her by the board, provided they are not inconsistent with these bylaws. The president shall appoint all committee chairpersons. The president shall also keep the corporation's annual report with the state's corporate division. And for president, the individual that has been slated for president is our current president, Diane Hall. I now open nominations for any additional people for the office of president of the Warren Astronomical Society. There being no additional nominations, I am requesting that we have an affirmation vote for Diane Hall as president. All opposed signify by saying nay.
Point of order, Ken.
Yeah, go ahead.
You didn't give me the chance to accept.
Yes. Would you accept that position, Diane Hall?
I would.
Okay. Then that being said, are there any negative comments about against Diane Hall for president, since there are other nominations? Then by affirmation, Diane Hall, congratulations, you are now the president again of our Warren Astronomical Society.
Thank you, everybody. It is an honor, and I hope that 2021 is less tumultuous than 2020 has been.
Thank you, Diane. Now the second division, the second office. This is the office in section 5.04 of first vice president. The first vice president, in absence or inability of the president to serve, shall perform all the duties of the president. The first vice president, as program chair, shall A, solicit meeting presentations and guest speakers. B, planning and the maintaining of the presentation schedule. C, planning special presentations. D, communicate and coordinate with the meeting venues. In addition, the first vice president shall be a member of of all committees that are appointed by the president. The attendance of the first vice president at all committee meetings shall not be mandatory. At the present time, we have one person slated for this position, and that is Dale Parton. Are there any additional nominations for the position of first vice president? Since I hear no additional nominations, I have a motion to close the nominations. Anybody can. Yes?
I accept the nomination.
I was about to do that with you. All right. All right. That being said, are there any other nominations for the position of first vice president? Since there are none, then by affirmation, Dale Parton, you are now again the first vice president of this club. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Now for the position of second vice president. Section 5.05, the second vice president, in the absence and inability of the president and the first vice president to serve, shall perform all the duties of the president. The second vice president is as observatory chair, shall supervise and maintain the observatory buildings and equipment, plan observatory events, and communicate and coordinate with the organizations that host our observatory buildings. Second vice president shall be a member of all committees that are appointed by the president. The attendance of the second vice president at all committee meetings shall not be mandatory. We have on the slate Riyad Mahdi. Riyad, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do accept.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for the positions of second vice president? Since there are none, then we will close the nominations for second vice president and congratulate Riyad Mahdi on his continued position as second vice president. Do you have any words, Riyad?
Thank you very much. We'll keep doing it.
Okay, we're getting there. There's a little picture for everybody. Ta-da. Okay. For secretary. For secretary, in section 5.06, the secretary shall be custodian of all original records and documents of the corporation. Second, keep the minutes of all meetings of the board of directors and of the executive committee. C, notify all members of meetings. D, perform all other duties that are incident to the office of secretary or that may be assigned by the board of or the chairperson that are not inconsistent with these bylaws. At this time, we have one individual that has been slated. That is Mark Kedzier. Mark, do you accept the nomination? Mark, can you unmute, please?
I will accept the nomination.
Very good. All right. Thank you. And are there any additional nominations for secretary at this time? Since there are none, by affirmation, we give the office of secretary to Mark Kedzier. Congratulations, Mark. Do you have any words to continue?
I'd like to say thank you and look forward to serving the Warren Astronomical Society.
Thank you very much. Now mute yourself, Mark. Okay, thank you. Okay, there's a very nice thing. Now we have a situation, and that is the position of treasurer. We would like you to all unmute at this point in time if you can. Can we do that?
Last person to unmute gets to be the treasurer.
I was gonna volunteer.
Who's that?
This is Adrian. I was gonna volunteer for that role.
Adrian, very good. I'd like that. Okay. Well, Adrian, that's fantastic. Hold on a second, please. Okay, Adrian, are there any other nominations for the position of treasurer?
Heck no.
Oh God, you're killing me. All right, Adrian. All in favor? No, not all in favor. I don't have to do that. Are there? Since there's no other nominations, I close the nominations for Adrian for treasurer. And Adrian, you are now the treasurer. Congratulations.
Thanks.
There you go.
I'll be talking to you soon.
Okay.
Yeah, very soon.
I think the word is condolences, Ken.
Yeah.
Very, very well. Let me just tell you what you're going to have to do now, Adrian. This will only take about 3 days to read. The treasurer shall keep a current list of the memberships and their addresses, collect all dues and receive other monies that as may come to the corporation, be accountable for the receipt and disbursement of funds and property on behalf of the corporation, regularly enter or cause to be entered in the books of the corporation a complete account of all funds and properly received by him or her, in the case this way for him, for the account of the corporation. Render and written account of all corporation's accounts to the directors at each regular meeting of the board. Exhibit account books to the corporation and all securities, vouchers, papers, documents of the corporation in his or her custody to any director or designee of a director upon reasonable request. File all tax and other financial reports required of the corporation and perform all the duties that are incident to the office of treasurer or that may be assigned by the board or the chairperson and are not inconsistent with these bylaws. As a matter of policy, the signature of the treasurer or the president shall be required on all checks. The treasurer shall carry a maximum amount of petty cash to be determined by the board of directors and shall authorize payment of all bills with board oversight. All expenditures over $100 must be approved by the board. There any and I'm glad I read this after you took the job, Adrian. All right.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Sounds like what most treasurer jobs are. Handle the money properly.
Well, we are very happy to have you at that position. Thank you very much. Moving along now. For outreach, the outreach director shall plan major public events, solicit volunteers for said events, communicate with park systems, educational groups, and other astronomy clubs to satisfy this corporation's purpose as cited in section 2.01A. And we have one nominee slated, and that is Robert Tremblay. Bob, do you accept that nomination?
Yep.
I guess that's an affirmation. All right.
Yes.
So, all right. Are there any other additional nominees for the position of outreach? Since there are no other nominations, I am going to close the nominations without objection, please, and congratulate Bob being elected by affirmation to the position for outreach. And go get him, kid. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I hope we can actually get some guys scheduled to do some lectures at libraries next year. That'd be nice.
Well, you got me, so it's good. All right. All right, let's move along. There it is, outreach. All those people are now in their 30s, by the way. All right, here we go, moving along. The next position is for publications. The nominee at this point in time is Dale Teeney. That's on the slate. The publications director shall edit and publish a monthly newsletter and other publications, and B, write the solicit articles for said publications. Dale, are you in shouting area?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept it.
Okay, are there any other nominations for the position of publications at this time?
No.
There are none. All right, then. By affirmation, we are closing the nomination for publications. There are no other nominees. And we are now going to elect Dale Teeney by affirmation. Any objections? Then Dale, you are now publications director. Once again, back into the mill of the paperwork, huh?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Anything you'd like to add?
Well, looking forward to continuing what we've been doing all along, and maybe a couple other things.
Okay, sounds wonderful to us all. All right, and of course, we will be probably doing Zoom meetings for the executive board going forward again, as we did during John Blum's administration. And there you are, the WASP, believe it or not. And at this point in time, a affirmation by our president just to close the nominations will be adequate for me. So if you'd like to do that, please do.
Oh, yes. I would like to put forward a motion to close the nominations.
And I'll second it. What the heck? It doesn't matter. Okay.
All right. All in favor? Any opposed?
Nominate. It's closed.
It's closed. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very much looking forward to working with this board, both returning members like most of y'all and new members like Adrian. So this will be fabulous. With that, I would like to temporarily adjourn the meeting for our 20-minute snack break, bio break, chat break, and reconvene at 8:50 for our feature presentation. See y'all in a few.
Dale, pardon, there was some question about which one of your past talks you were referring to about the Drake equation on the chat. People were offering different possible links. So if you'd like to send us a link in the chat to which specific one of your past talks on YouTube is the one you might refer to about the Drake equation.
I will do so. I'll have it there within 2 or 3 minutes.
Great.
Thanks for letting me know.
There you go. Adrian, you're on the screen. Can you see that?
I can't see it. Are you sharing your screen?
I think so. I thought I was. Escape.
Try it again, Ken. I can't see it either.
Let me do it.
Yeah, one thing that we'll be missing at the virtual banquet is normally we do the pics of the outgoing board and the incoming board, and we'll have to cobble together something through the wizardry of Photoshop this time around.
No, we'll just do a screenshot of the Webex window.
I guess so.
Is it up there yet?
No, Ken, it's not.
It will be now. Just a minute.
Come on.
Sorry.
Ghost.
There
Ready,
we go.
everybody? Yeah. Okay, hold on.
A beautiful island.
There it is. Yay.
All right.
Yeah, now it's official.
There you go.
All right. Name's all spelled correctly, and it's the color of maize, which is my favorite color. That's awesome. I hate faces, but yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Excellent.
Now I gotta unshare. I screwed up. Oh, there you go. I can get that. Yeah. Stop share. There you go. Stop.
Share that picture. It's a beautiful picture. I need to take pictures like that.
Okay. All right. Congratulations, everybody. And it was fun doing it one more time. And all's well. Looking forward to a meeting.
So this is going to be interesting because I'm pretty much the self-glue bridge between Glack and Was now.
Yeah, you are.
There will be some, so I'll have to have some interesting conversations with myself about Glack's direction and whether or not, all of a sudden I'm treasurer of a real 501c3 organization, and Glack's trying to get to that point. So the president's side versus the treasurer side is going to have to fight it out one punch at a time. And so we'll see how that goes. I think we'll come to, I think myself will come to a good conclusion, but I have to have that fight. Meanwhile, I'll be getting with Mark to get or started with it. I'll get all the information and get started. So it'll be fun. I do work for a bank, probably know, but I work in the IT field. I'm not actually handling the money. But
doesn't matter. You're a financial services professional.
We'll have to
just like I work in retail.
We'll have to meet over at Bank of America one day shortly.
Yeah. Ask ready.
Probably in Farmington Hills or something to sort of find a medium, because I think the three of us would have to be there because I'm on the account for some reason.
Yeah.
Diane, are you on the account too? I don't know. Whoever's on the account needs to be there for the sign off.
Yep. Is there a limit for people that can be on the account? in bylaws, it has to be a certain, like the president has to be on, you're on it, Jonathan, and then the treasurer. I don't know if it.
Well,
like
I
Mark-
mean, I am actually, so I actually, I've been on sort of to be able to help with PayPal and stuff, but, you know, I'm not going to be on the board next year, so I don't know if I should stay on. We'll figure it out later.
Yeah, that's having help, you know, until I become self-sufficient with it. I mean, I'm gonna enlist all the help I can get.
Yeah, and Dale
this isn't-
Tini helps a lot too, so you definitely will have lots of support.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to
You're
that,
gonna
Dale.
you're gonna be blown away by our ledger database.
Well, that's the part I may be okay with because you know, I deal with complex stuff every.
No.
Not be the hard part. The hard part yeah, is my thing. If it's weird algorithms, I go right into it. But if it's like, yeah, we got
It's
to pay them
not,
right now.
Yeah, it's just an Excel sheet. Well, it's a Google Drive sheet. But...
It's just a little bit more sophisticated than an abacus.
Yep.
Let's.
I mean, actually, there are some abacuses that are more sophisticated, I would say. But
that's probably true.
I'm going to share really quickly, just really quickly, because this is, and I'm not going to leave this up very long. There's my spreadsheet. Okay, you've seen it. So spreadsheets are fun for me.
Yeah, ours is not quite that complicated.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm ready. I have a spreadsheet for the bowling balls that I use. I've won a few, and I've come into ownership of a few more that I didn't expect to come into ownership of. So I even have a spreadsheet for that because they all do different things. So yeah, the hard part will be making sure everyone's money comes in on time, and I'm keeping track of membership. And we have a good treasurer with the low house named Doug Scoble, so he's kind of he may end up becoming a mentor as well for just general, without sharing with him anything at all about the finances of what, but just general how to keep things without your head blowing up.
Well, our finances are kind of an open book, so share away.
Yeah, but you have to do much. It's like, yeah, guess what is doing. So I can tell you the dealing with the same level of budget. Still good. There's also scholarships and all the money that's supposed to go out, and balancing all of that should be fun. But in 2 months, be screaming life. I'll keep working. Once in a while, I might.
It's not that bad.
Scream.
You have a lot on your plate, but
honestly, Adrian,
but that's the story of my life too. So
the worst part of switching treasurers is the visit to the bank, because that is the biggest hurdle.
I don't think we've ever completed it in fewer than 6 months.
Yeah, just getting
maybe
people
one time we got it done in 4 months, but
on the account, getting them custody of the bank book, that is the biggest pain in the butt.
We're in COVID times. This isn't going to be easy, although most banks have their procedures in place, and we will more than likely have to agree upon a day and hope the bank will agree upon it too.
Yeah, that's true.
By
appointment.
Request only, or what is it, by reservation only now?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you, Adrian, and thank you, Mark and Dale, if you can hear me. I'm sure Glenn and Mark and Jonathan are all very happy to hand over the reins, because as much as it's an honor to be part of the WASP board, for some strange reason, people are really happy to hand that baton off to somebody else. No
It's, you know, it's not that bad, Adrian, especially now with the online, you know, it's not that bad. The biggest thing, and I haven't been getting many spam requests lately, but you just have to watch out. You get a lot of phony requests for, hey, can you send me money? And they'll spoof other officer accounts and send you an urgent email. Hey, I've got so-and-so. I need you to wire me some money for this or that. And that's
okay. Well,
I haven't gotten those requests lately, but
that's good.
Yeah.
Well, like I remember Ken Burton reading it out. I mean, everything's getting vetted by the board. That's called extort. Well, I forget what the words are, extortion or mishandling of funds. To be like, oh, sure, I trust you. Here's $2,000 for you to do whatever you need. I hope you get out of jail. Nah.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, as it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Need $2,000. It's got to go through all of you, and it's got to come up. Probably has to come up in a board meeting at minimal, not just personal requests for money.
Well, right. Anything over $100 has to be dealt with through a proper motion. So,
anything under $100, I'd still like y'all to know about it.
Oh yeah, we want it documented, but if Riyadh, as the observatory chair, says, hey, a lock broke at Stargate for the Dobb shed, I had to buy a new padlock, it cost me $50. You can just let us know at a board meeting. It gets noted down in the minutes, and you pay Riyadh. Whereas if Riyadh wants to buy a new refractor telescope, and that's to the tune of $8,000, then that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah. The answer to that is, Riyadh, I have a 6-inch refractor for free. Here you go. I hope you can do something with it. Yeah, $8,000. I'm not even sure I'd buy it for myself, because I just don't have room here anymore. I have a John Cosland old telescope. It's a C11. And he sold it to me while he was alive, and that Losman D mount came with it. Once it's set up, it's a thing of beauty, but I haven't set it up in a little while. I did set it up briefly to test out tracking the sun. I got to get ready, because I'm going to be setting that up again when I do my winter circle runs. But it's the big scope, the big 11-inch itself becomes cumbersome to deal with. So, like, let alone an $8,000 refractor, and I have to polar align my mount every single time because I don't have my own observatory. So, no thanks.
Good for planetary stuff.
Yeah, well, for that conjunction coming up, Dale. I don't know if you've got a low horizon, but the Jupiter-Saturn planetary images ought to be getting really good around the end of November as they get closer.
Yeah, you can see the grain of the bark, right as it.
You saw.
I don't know if I will be able to see the conjunction with my scope.
Yeah, I think most of us are gonna miss it on the 21st when they're so close it looks like one star. But that's what I think. I think Thanksgiving's going to be the best time to give that a go. They're going to be close, and the sun will be set to where the planets will be visible still. They won't be as close together, but they may be close enough to image in the same field. I don't know.
I wonder how many accidents those two are going to cause.
Plenty. All their moons are going to collide.
No, I meant auto accidents from people.
Oh, from people. Look, I don't know if people will know about it. It just looks like a single star to me. yeah, I don't know. At this point, I don't know what the general public's going to respond. But I know, I think those of us that have friends that make us, especially me, I get made to take pictures of stuff. I get messages when the moon rose on Halloween. I had a message going, "Are you taking a picture of that?" I told him, "No, I'm busy." So I deal with it.
Adrian, do I have your email address?
You should, but I'm going to text it to you.
You can do that. That'd be fine.
I'll send it. Well, you know what? I'll just put it in the chat. I don't
Put it in the
mind
chat.
people.
That's gonna. Yeah, you can
Not
make
mind
it private.
people on
You can private it to me anyway. Fine.
Nobody's
Throw it in the chat.
Nobody's
I mean,
sharing anything. If nobody's sharing anything, I'm gonna.
Okay, I got it.
You're gonna go ahead, Bob.
I got it.
I'm actually gonna. How much more time do we have, you all? Couple minutes.
About 15 minutes, actually.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
I got
No,
5 minutes to run and I got 5 minutes to run and munch on something and then jump right back.
I think I'm gonna do the same thing.
Oh, it's Kerbal. I knew it was coming. All right, I'll be back.
I agree.
So Bob, there's a Kerbal knot called Frank Kerman, if I'm correct. Is there?
Did I lose somebody?
I don't think so, Ken.
Okay. How you doing there? How'd you like our chat so far, you and I?
It's been fun.
It has been. I like going after these people. I did say something the other day that I'm very happy about shaming people if after the election on either side. I absolutely will not tolerate that, and I will not allow that to occur. You can lambaste either of the candidates all you want, but you better not go personally after somebody I know. I tell you, that's the deal. And I am serious about the fact of actually unfriending and blocking those that do that. So I'm really serious about that. I can't tolerate that anymore. It's just not good. Not good. Well, anyway, we could talk about that all day, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. No, I'm gonna be on the phones from 9 in the morning till 8 in the evening tomorrow. So it's gonna be a
Go
long
for it.
day.
Good for you. I love it. All right. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that are going on. So, okay.
So I have a question about the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. So, I don't think I'm going to be able to see it once the sunset. It's just so low. What about the possibility of putting an infrared filter on and taking it during the daylight? Has anybody given that any thought? My new camera is especially sensitive in infrared. So, a lot of times that's not much of an option. Well, 1/3 of an option, let's say.
Well, for what it's worth,
I think my answer is I simply should try it sometime just for any of the planets during the day and see what happens.
I have imaged Jupiter and Venus during the day. If you can find them, they're quite visible.
Okay.
And you don't need any special filter. The trick is getting aligned well enough that you can find them.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's going to be hard, because normally, you know, we'll put a 2.5 times Barlow, you know, to really zoom in on a planet and then use a smaller sensor. Well, but to get them both, I want to use, I guess I want to use a different camera with those.
The other thing is you don't have to do it in the middle of the day. You can do it as dusk is approaching when the sky is getting darker. But the planets would still be bright.
Trees on my property, so I mean there are windows that work and things that don't.
What day is the close conjunction again?
I think it's the 21st.
The closest is December 21st. It will also be very close toward the end of November.
Okay.
I think we have both dates on the WASP calendar.
Oh, really? It's not just like each day gets a little better until the 21st?
The 21st is the best, but in between the moon phases and whatnot, it will also be very good around American Thanksgiving. And it'll be darker. So both the end of November and the end of December will be favorable because, as Adrian pointed out, it's going to be really low in late December, and that may be tricky for us. So I'd like to start filtering back now so we can call the meeting back to order and have our featured presenter take us on a little journey. Dale, whenever you are ready.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Well, our speaker tonight is Jenny Pond. She is one of us in the sense that back in the late 1980s, she attended a telescope making workshop near Holland, Michigan, taught by John Dobson. Under his guidance, she ground a 6-inch mirror and built a telescope. I haven't built a telescope, you know, she did with a Dobsonian mount. She has been into amateur astronomy ever since. Jenny has shared the wonders of the night sky for over 30 years under both the night sky and planetarium domes in East Lansing, Pittsburgh, where I went to school, and Detroit. She's been involved with the Amateur Astronomers Association of Pittsburgh and the Farmington Community Stargazers. Tonight, her scary sounding topic is space ghosts. Jenny, take it away.
Okay. Let's see. See if that works. Okay, can you see it? Oops.
Yep. Yes. Looks good.
Let's pick it up here. Okay, space ghosts. So it was Halloween last Saturday. Today's the Day of the Dead, if you didn't know. Okay, so space ghosts. We're going to look at things in the sky or in space that has a ghostly look to it. So we're going to start looking at space ghosts in the solar system. So things that look kind of wispy. And things that look kind of ghostly looking in the solar system are comets. So here's a comet here. So that's our space ghosts in the solar system. And we've got a couple of examples here. This is Hale-Bopp way back in 1997. So that's a space ghost, a very bright one that could be seen by the general public. So that's a bright comet. And here's a comet from 2007. And of course, a recent one is Comet Neowise. This was taken on the morning of July 13th when it was in the morning sky. And then it moved into the evening sky. So here's the evening of July 18th. It's near two stars right there, making a little nice triangle. Those two stars are one of the three pairs of stars that marks Ursa Major's pawls. So that's the front paw of Ursa Major. So Neowise is making a triangle with those two stars there in the front paw of Ursa Major. Okay, so this was on the evening of July 18th, taken in Lyon Township. Now the next photograph on the next evening was taken on the west side of Michigan, right there. This is over Lake Michigan at Little Sable Point. So that's the lighthouse in Silver Lake State Park. Okay, so that's on that night. If you look closely, those are those two same stars in the previous photograph there. So the comet has really moved from those two stars from one night to the next. A very beautiful photograph here of the evening sunset. Comets do pass by what is known as the Pleiades there. You might recognize this little star cluster here. So, so what is comets in this Pleiades? Okay, this is kind of a segue into the next thing, this object here. Okay, so Pleiades, which is also known as, you might know as M45, a Messier object. And so we're going to segue into Charles Messier. So M object, or Messier object. So Charles Messier, he was a very avid comet hunter, and he was just interested in looking for comets back in the 1700s here. And that was his passion. And when he was looking for comets, he might run into other things in the sky that looks like a comet. So the Pleiades might look like a comet to the naked eye on the naked eye level, but you know he had a telescope, and sometimes he runs into just other fuzzy things. So he started to keep track of a list of things that he did not want to mistaken as a comet. So this was his nuisance list. So a list of things not to that are non-comets. And it turns out his lists were interesting objects later on for amateur astronomers, but back in his time, he didn't care about these objects. These are very trivial things to him. He was just avid about comets. Okay, so we're going to go through some of the M objects that Charles Messier saw. They make up nebulas, star clusters, and galaxies. Okay, so let's start with the Pleiades again. Okay, so here's the Pleiades, a comet is passing by back in 2015. And this is, oops, wrong. Let's see, hit it again here. Okay. Okay, so now we're going into the Milky Way Galaxy. Space ghosts in the Milky Way Galaxy are nebulas and star clusters. So here's a photograph of the Orion Hunter. We're going to use it to find the Pleiades. So here's Orion, the three stars in the belt. And we draw a line to the belt. We come to a star Aldebaran, and that's a planet up there in that photograph. If you go past Aldebaran, we come to the Pleiades. So that's where you find the Pleiades in the sky. So you can see in the whole sky here, the Pleiades are a very small, tight star cluster. So it might be mistaken for a comet on the naked eye level. But if you do point a telescope at it, you can resolve it as to the individual stars. Okay. But with modern photography, we do long time exposures, and we find that the Pleiades have some nebulosity to them. So the Pleiades, that wispy stuff, indicates that they're very young stars, because the nebula, the stars come from star clouds. So these stars, the Pleiades, are young stars just formed out of its birth nebula. And eventually, the solar wind from each star will blow away the wispiness. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of M objects. So we'll start with M8, the Lagoon Nebula, as seen through a telescope. And Charles Messier, he had a telescope that was about 7.5 inches reflector. And the person that made these sketches had a similar telescope. It was an 8-inch reflector. So this is what Charles Messier might have seen through the telescope. This is what somebody would see through a telescope. So nebulas are faint to the eye. This is at low power. So this is M8, the Lagoon Nebula, as seen through the eyepiece of a telescope. So, you know, a faint, something might look like a comet. Okay, so that's on his list. This is not a comet. But with the advent of modern photography, we can see the beauty of M8, the Lagoon Nebula. Okay, so this is a cloud of gas and dust. Next to the next M object. M11, the wild duck cluster. To the naked eye, might look like a comet. Now, a telescope, we can see the individual stars. And here's a photograph of it. Very beautiful. So that's M11. Okay, M13, Hercules globular cluster. Okay, as seen through the eyepiece, or a sketch. I think this is a sketch, it looks like. Okay, and of course, photography, we can see the M13 its full glory here. Okay, back to the telescope eyepiece view, M16 Eagle Nebula, another dim fuzzball. Okay, so when the general public looks at these things, they see this dim fuzzy stuff. And here it is in a graph. Very nice image here. So that's the Eagle Nebula there. And I think we got a close-up here. Going to zoom in on that famous thing there. This is a Hubble image known as the Pillars of Creation. Dark nebula, dense where stars are forming within those pillars there. So this is a star-forming nebula. Okay, M20, the Trifid Nebula. Again, through the eyepiece, it's dim. And with the modern photography, we can see it is in its full glory here. So you see the dark dust lanes that makes the Trifid here. There's kind of 3 primary dust lanes. That's why it's called a Trifid. It's kind of the 3 dark dust lanes. It's another star-forming nebula. Okay, the most famous and brightest of these star-forming nebulas is M42, the Orion Nebula. And it's bright, naked eye, well, binoculars, and in a telescope. So this is a popular amateur, for amateur astronomers to get started on. And now we're going to go to a photograph of it. Back to the real sky to see where M42 is. So here's Orion, the 3 stars in the belt, and the 2 above and the 2 below. So Orion, the hunter. And below the belt is his sword, hanging is his sword. And about the middle star in the sword is the Orion Nebula. So let's take a look at it. So here this in the sky in a photograph. So there's the 3 stars in a row with the belt of Orion. Here's the sword, and you see the Orion Nebula there. And now close up, getting even closer here. We got even a couple more. So here's the 3 stars in the belt, and there's another nebula. That's the horse head. But here's the Orion Nebula, M42. Below the easternmost star in there. Okay, so, and of course, a Hubble image of the Orion Nebula. Very beautiful. They make pretty pictures here. A star-forming nebula. Okay, and 57 is the Ring Nebula. And in a telescope at low power, it kind of looks like a Cheerio or a blood corpuscle. It's kind of faint there. And so there's the Ring Nebula. Now, the other nebulas were, the fuzzy ones, were star forming. Here's an example of a planetary nebula, which is a star in its later stage in its life. So this is a kind of a dead star. And so planetary nebulas, in their later stage of life, they kind of blow out their outer atmosphere, their outer layers as they die. And we see the central star right there, the core of that star, and our sun will one day kind of end up as a planetary nebula. So that core there is the white dwarf, the core of the star that's kind of the same mass as our sun. Okay, so that's an example of a dead star. We saw a star forming, now we're seeing a dead star. Okay, now other things that look like comets to Charles Messier were galaxies. So he didn't know what, didn't know what the true nature of galaxies back in his time. So we're going to go beyond the Milky Way now and look at some space ghosts, galaxies. So we're going to start with the Leo triplet. And in a low power telescope, this is at about 40 power, you can actually fit these 3 galaxies in the same field of view. So that's kind of unique, you fit 3 galaxies in the same field of view. And 2 of them were pretty bright to Charles Messier. And they were M65 and M66 right there. This is NGC galaxy right there. So 3 galaxies in the same field of view. Okay, back to the eyepiece. As seen through the eyepiece, the M51 Whirlpool Galaxy. This is what looks like faint. And this is what it looks like in a photograph. Very beautiful astrophotography here. So this is a face-on spiral galaxy. You see the dark dust lanes there. Galaxies are star-making factories here. So we're going to get into that. So a bunch of stars and stars being made in the dust lanes there, etc. So stars and dust, gas and dust, they all kind of go together. So M51, the beautiful M51 face-on spiral galaxy. Okay, here's one that's the M104, the Sombrero Galaxy. And this one's edge-on. This is what it looks like through an eyepiece. It's dim. And here it is in the photograph. So this is pretty much edge-on to us. And we see its dark dust lanes there. That's stardust right there. So that's the Sombrero Galaxy. And of course, M31, the Andromeda Galaxy. our sister galaxy. It's very close to us, and it's so close to us, it cannot fit in the same field of view in a small telescope here. So this is our next door neighbor, large spiral galaxy as seen through the eyepiece. So it is kind of bright. That's because it's close by. And here is in a photograph, after photography, long time exposures is probably stacked and everything and processed. And you can see the dark dust lanes there where stars are forming, and that's dust is actually stardust. And all the stars in the photograph here are stars in our Milky Way, so they're in the foreground. And we have to look through the stars of the Milky Way and beyond to see the Andromeda. So yeah, so the Milky Way stars are in our field in front of the M31 there. Okay, so I've been harping about where do stars come from, and I kind of gave you a hint. So they come from nebulas, okay? So we saw an example in Orion. So stars come from nebula, and it's this part of a life cycle. So here's that photograph again showing two star-forming regions here. So here's the Orion Nebula, great cloud of gas and stardust from which stars form. And here's the Horsehead Nebula, also a star-forming nebula. So we're going to kind of zoom in on the Horsehead here, the beautiful Horsehead Nebula. And the dark nebula here means the dust in the cloud is starting to contract under gravity. So that's where stars are going to start forming in these dark nebulas. So the gravity is starting to contract the gas and dust into balls of stars. So that's an indication that stars are about to be forming here when you see a dark nebula right there. Okay, this is in optical light here, but with infrared, we can see through the dust. So infrared can see through the dust. So this is through infrared view of it. And we can see into the whole head there. It's kind of really bizarre looking. Okay, so that's the horse head. Okay, another star forming thing. So since it's kind of like Halloween and the Day of the Dead, we do have some nebulas that have things that look like ghosts. So this is the Ghost Nebula that's in Cepheus, the constellation of Cepheus the King in the northern sky. So we have things kind of poking up right here. That might be star forming here. It's kind of a dark, things dense here. So stars are starting to form there. Okay, that's the Ghost Nebula in Cepheus. And another on the same thing here is the Witch's Head. So this is kind of, you can see the witch's head, the profile here, the witch's nose here, and her long chin here. And this is near the star of Rigel. So it's reflecting the light from the star Rigel. So this is a reflection nebula. Okay, also a star-forming nebula. Okay, so stars. So let's kind of review where stars come from. Okay, so stars go through a life cycle. They start out in nebulas like Orion, like the Orion Nebula here, or the Horsehead. So the nebula, star-forming nebulas are great clouds of gas, and I like to say stardust. So these are not dust bunnies, but they're remains of previous stars. So, so in this great gas of cloud of gas and dust, gravity starts to contract the gas and dust into balls, and they start to contract bigger, so as gravity contracts the mass of the gas and dust, the core of this ball of gas and dust gets hotter and hotter until the core ignites into a star. It starts to shine because through nuclear fusion. So from the protostar, gravity starts to makes the core very hot, and it starts the nuclear furnace inside that ball of gas. So now it becomes a battle between gravity trying to collapse that ball of gas and dust, and now we have this nuclear fusion creating the radiation that keeps the star held up. Okay, so it's a constant battle between gravity and the radiation. So so for billions of years, a star that has about the same mass as our sun, so it's a sun-like star, it can burn in the steady state of the battle between gravity and the radiation for billions of years. So we say that this star is on the main sequence. But eventually, so it's fusing hydrogen. But over time, it's going to run out of its hydrogen fuel at its core, and it becomes unstable. And the next stage in the life cycle of a star, like our sun, is the red giant phase, where it starts to puff out its atmosphere. So it becomes a red giant, so it's puffing out its atmosphere. Then eventually it kind of gets more unstable. It really loses its atmosphere. It becomes a planetary nebula, as we saw in the Ring Nebula. So that's an example. And the core becomes the white dwarf right there. But all the materials that's being released eventually mingles in the interstellar space, and then it mingles into another cloud of gas and dust, which becomes the material for future generations of other stars and planets. Okay, so that's an example of what happens to a star that's sort of like our sun. But what happens to stars that are formed bigger or more massive than our sun? So this is the other half of the life cycle of other stars. Okay, massive stars. Stars that are 8 to 10 times larger than our sun, more massive than our sun. So 8 times more massive than our sun goes through a kind of a different life cycle. So when the star turns on, it only shines. A massive star only shines as a star. It's only on the main sequence for millions of years, as opposed to billions of years. Now our sun is like 5 billion years old, and we say that it has another 5 billion years in its life. So sun-like stars live to be like 10 billion years. But stars that are bigger, they kind of burn hot and faster, so they only live like for millions of years, and they burn hotter, so they kind of have a bluish color to them. Our sun has a yellow color, but hot stars, they just burn up their fuel, use up their hydrogen a lot faster. And they also go through a red giant phase near the end of their life, but because they're bigger, they're red supergiants. Okay, so it's red giants for sun-like stars, but it's red supergiants for the bigger ones like Antares and Betelgeuse. Okay, so when at the end of its life, when the gravity wins in this battle here, the gravity collapses onto the core, and then we have a big explosion known as a supernova. So that's what happens. A supernova is where gravity wins in the game of things there. So the core of a large star could end up as a neutron star, or if it's very massive star, has a lot of material, it will keep on collapsing into a black hole. Okay, so when the massive star blows up, it releases all this materials. It was cooking a lot of stuff inside, elements, and that releases it into the interstellar space. And all the materials, the stuff that's inside that star, floats into other clouds of gas and dust out there in the interstellar space, which becomes, it enriches those other clouds of gas and dust for future generations of stars and planets. So the elements are made inside of stars. So there is a connection here. So when you go through these life cycles here, so we see a star on its main sequence here. Inside the core, they're making chemical elements. So the Big Bang started out with the hydrogen. So the early universe was mostly hydrogen, and that became the building block for building other elements. But you need the right conditions to forge the heavier elements, and that's inside the cores of stars where it's very hot. Okay, so I'm going to bring up a chemical table here. I'm going to kind of look at this for a moment here. So there is a cosmic connection to the elements here. So the Big Bang in the early universe was the hydrogen. So what's kind of bluish here in this particular diagram here, hydrogen and helium came from the Big Bang, and some of the lighter elements like these three here were kind of formed from cosmic rays. So in the early universe, it was mostly hydrogen and helium that's predominant. But then inside of stars, small ones and big ones, so there's yellow, orange color here and the green, made the other elements here. So let's focus on the elements of life. That's carbon. The DNA is made out of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, and hydrogen, and phosphorus. Okay, that's phosphorus right here. So we have hydrogen inside of us. That's from the Big Bang. And we also have carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, and phosphorus. And that these were made inside of small and large stars right here. So so those are the, as you see, the small sun-like stars. There's not too many, but then we see the green color for the very large stars makes up the other elements here. And then we go down here. Here's calcium. The calcium in your bones were made inside of a very large star. And then we get to here, iron. So that's iron was made inside the core of a very large star. And it was released into the interstellar space through a supernova. So the things with the dollar sign here, this kind of this orange copper color with the S sign, the heavier elements were made during the supernova process. So during the explosion, there's only trace amounts of the elements, the heavier elements made from a supernova. So usually the end of the life of a massive star is when it reaches the iron stage. But to release these elements that's made inside the core, it has to kind of blow up, kind of release it into the interstellar space. So every time a star blows up, it enriches gas star-forming clouds for the next, future generations of star-forming clouds with its chemicals. So this is a process It's a great recycling process. Okay, so let's get back here. So supernovas are very important for our existence here. We would not exist without supernovas. So here's supernova. I think this is the only supernova remnant is on Charles Messi's list. This is M1, the Crab Nebula here. So Charles Messier saw that, so that was number 1 on his list there. And this is in Taurus, the bull, I think near one of its horn tips there. So M1, the Crab Nebula supernova remnants, is releasing the elements that was made inside in its core into the interstellar space, and it enriches nebulas for future generations of other stars and planets. Okay, so I'd like to end up with this here. We are truly made out of star stuff. So here's us as star stuff looking and contemplating the universe. There's the Milky Way, different stages of star life here, the star cycle here. This is truly a great recycling center here. Here's the dark dust clouds of gas and stardust. Not to say dust, but it is stardust up there. So stardust, looking at stardust, and we see the stars here on the making elements within them. Okay, so that's the end of my little talk right there. Oops, let me stop sharing the screen there. Okay, is it stopped?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, do we have questions? You can throw them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask.
I just want to commend you on that lecture. And I learned several things.
You did.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Who else?
What did you learn?
I learned that where in the chart our makeup is. I learned how the 2 cycles diverge, large and small. Your photographs are fabulous. And how it looks in the telescope and how the colors, the big magnification, that was very interesting too. And I'm sure there's more, but
Jenny, could I ask something?
Yeah.
In your periodic table, it showed certain elements being made in large stars. And I had thought in the past that only elements up to iron were made inside of the stars and all the others in the supernovas. So you had some elements beyond iron being made inside the stars. So are elements, some of those elements heavier than iron being made before it becomes a supernova?
Yeah, that diagram had me wondering about the same question here. So in that particular diagram, whoever made it, yeah, my thought was that only up to iron was made inside a core. So so I'm thinking like you are, and I was kind of wondering why there was other green things beyond iron. So that was one particular chart. So I've seen other ones that say differently. So that's all I can say about that. Is just the different whoever diagram you're using. But that was the best one. That the main point is that the elements are made inside. Most of them up to iron are made in the core stars, and beyond that is supernova.
Okay.
I gave a presentation to the Warren Club early this year on that topic, as I'm sure John Blum knows. I'll put a link to it in the chat, and it the new thinking, well, first of all, in a massive star, you can make elements up to iron and smaller amounts of nickel and cobalt beyond iron. But bulk of the atoms heavier than about iron, recent thinking is that they're made in events like neutron star mergers. And I described that in a recent, earlier this year presentation. And as I say, I'll put a link to it in the chat.
Thanks.
All right. How about some more questions?
How many places are stars being made? How many those different identities are making stars?
Yeah, maybe others can say wherever there's nebulas in the Milky Way. I only showed a few examples here. So there's in the arms of the Milky Way. That when you look at an image of a galaxy, it's in the arms is where stars are forming. So all that dust laying you're seeing there, there's got to be lots of star forming regions. So any image where you see dust lanes, galaxy pictures, those are where stars are being made.
So galaxies and nebulas.
Yeah. Well, in the arms of the galaxy are the dust lanes, which is the dust, which is star dust. So galaxies are essentially star-making factories.
Not nebulas, galaxies.
Yeah, galaxies are star-making factories. So it's a great cycle between the stars. So it goes from a star, it goes through dust, then it goes back to a dust, star, dust. It's kind of that cycle.
Okay.
Until all of the free hydrogen and gas clouds around the galaxy is gone, as happens in starburst galaxies, and then you have a galactic murder story like we see with M82.
Terrific stuff.
I thought it covered a tremendous amount of ground in a really entertaining way.
That's true.
Yes, thank you.
It's tremendous.
And a seasonal theme to boot.
We've got, yep.
So Jenny, just on a personal aesthetic level, what do you think is the spookiest thing that you've seen through a telescope? Or not through a telescope? For me, it's just seeing at the end of a late summer observing run, having Capricornus just standing there at the southern horizon is always kind of creepy to me. But
Messier, as I understand, gave up on naming the Messier objects because of William Herschel. William Herschel and his sister named several hundred, and Messier kind of gave up when that started to occur because he was Messier was using a much larger telescope and a lot of other equipment. And the interesting story about Messier is he probably would have continued if the Herschels hadn't been adding 5 a day to the list. It's a great story that goes with that.
That southern hemisphere view of the Milky Way is on my bucket list, by the way.
Trust me, it'll blow you away, and everything you look at in the southern hemisphere will be stunning to you. And make sure you take a small telescope and take a look at Omega Centauri. And when you look at Omega Centauri, you'll think that M13 was just a spot in space in comparison. quite.
Yeah, I'm prepared for that.
Or you could get up with like Jonathan and Diane and I did on Maui last winter and see Omega Centauri from the United States.
Yeah. Yep.
I hear you can view it you can view it in Arizona certain times of the year and down in Florida.
Seen it from the outskirts of Las Vegas.
Go see it from Bolivia. It's right in the middle of the sky.
It can actually be seen as far north as New York City.
Right.
It can be seen as far north as Canada on Pelee Point, sticking out in Lake Erie. Just
smack on the 42nd.
barely for a few days in March.
My grand scheme is to see if the horizon is low enough at Lake Hudson, where I was looking at the comet, to see if it's low enough there. That's a pretty low western horizon, and there's a couple of days in the year, according to Sky Safari, that it just peaks supposedly over that horizon.
The sky glow though there? What is the exact latitude of Lake Hudson, Adrian?
Like it's gotta be 41 point something. I'll look that up.
That's tantalizing. Because Point Pelee is smack on the 42nd parallel. And of course, you've got Lake Erie to the south, with the sky domes of Sandusky and Toledo very far away.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Ross tried very, very hard to see
from Michigan,
from the Indiana border, and was not able to. So I think you really have to have a water horizon. I just don't think anything else is going to cut it.
A water horizon in the true darkness.
Right. Now, that does happen to be a water horizon on the Lake Hudson beach. But again, it's a long shot. One encouraging thing is we would look at when the comet was there, we looked at where it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be some, 6 degrees above the horizon. And we looked up and said, that looks more like 12 degrees. So I'm giving it a shot. It has to be April.
When you go to the Southern Hemisphere, you get to see 47 Tucani, which is a relatively spectacular piece of work. And of course, the large, small Magellan clouds, which is pretty amazing. They're not so amazing when they're up in the middle of the sky, but they're really nice at the horizon. Really cool.
Yeah, there's
things to work.
I'd have to plan out all kinds of photography opportunities if I make it down there. So
there's South America, South Africa, either one. They're both pretty cool.
I'm thinking New Zealand is a pretty good place.
Oh, yes, and the skies are crystal down there.
If they let me into New Zealand, I might not be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may live there. Right now, I won't be able to go. You're an American? No, you're not coming. But in a year's time, I don't know if we'll still be allowed. I mean, this thing's got to run its course.
So I was actually in talks with the guys from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, Windsor, in March to join them for their annual hunt for Omega Centauri from Canadian soil. And then the border closed.
I think that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to see though in that southern, and the other guy that did a lot of that, of course, was what was it? Who's the guy that did the Caldwell objects? What's his name?
Patrick Moore.
Yeah, Patrick Moore. And he has a lot of objects also in his book that are also nebula that are rather interesting too. Caldwell objects, those are cool. Great, Jenny. Great talk, and really appreciate your the way you put that together. It's really done so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're just sorry we can't take you to the Red Coat Tavern like we normally would.
What are you gonna do?
Send us a rain check.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're gonna go every day of the week when this thing breaks up.
I'm so tempted. I miss that place so much.
Gosh, yes, that was wonderful. It really was.
Well, the breaking news from GLAC is that right now, unbeknownst to Bob, I don't even know if, yeah, Bob hiding out, we're going to look at the idea of doing a hybrid event for next year, but it's right now it's just in my brain. If things don't improve, we will be virtual again. But yeah, we have to see how this goes, and if we as a country get our act together with stopping the spread, then because outdoor events have been mentioned by the doctors as there's less risk, but there still is risk. I thought there was a small cluster outbreak with a summer camp up in Gladwin. I would have to verify that story. It was a couple of months ago.
There was, but it was also people, they were bunking together at night, right? So
okay, yeah, there you go.
Not to say that there's no risk, but maybe, maybe as we get to understand this better, I'm really hopeful we can reopen the observatory with, sooner rather than later. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I'd like to see it. I think the medical scientists are not ready to say, yeah, go ahead and, get closer. I would anticipate that if they, with some more testing and with the vaccines coming out, that they would say, you can still mask, but we can relax social distancing. If it gets to that point, that's when all of the clubs start talking about how do we handle observation, because once you can be a little closer than 6 feet, if the vaccine is being, if it's being out, then you can start talking about safely showing views in a telescope, in binoculars, and all of our clubs can get back to safe, but requiring masks even still. But again, just maybe the distance becomes relaxed. But we're not at that point. As my little 2 cents, my opinion only. Our country wasn't ready to give up its fun for a little sickness, and that's where we're at.
Yep, I think we'll have to see more in the spring. So
yeah, we have to see a reduction in cases. And one thing I like to mention, there's a lot of talk about the case. It's not about the cases anymore. People are recovering. Cases are reported by hospitals, and if you're in a hospital, that means you're in a pretty bad shape, and if you don't get hospital attention, you could die. So those cases are pretty significant because you have to be in a hospital to be recorded as a case.
Yep, that's for sure.
So
I believe that's correct, Adrian. I think when you test positive, you report it as a case. And Oakland County's going to have a test, and then if the test is positive, then it's a case.
Okay, I always thought it was you were admitted.
Not at all. If you're in your doctor's office, the doctor says you got COVID, the doctor registers.
And then the doctor reports that?
Yeah.
That's how we know about the asymptomatic cases. I mean, the asymptomatic people are still out as cases; they're not in hospitals. Plenty of people have recovered, as in they haven't died, but they're not in very good shape. Including, Jonathan and I have a friend who got sick that second week in March. It took him a long time to get anything.
There's a lot more of that coming out too. You're recovering from COVID, but then are you truly recovered? All of a sudden, more complications are developing, and they're being traced back to COVID. So, no, you're absolutely right. I stand corrected. It's still a big concern if there's more positive cases, and the spread as well, and spreading it to someone who can't handle COVID quite like anyone else can. So
there's more and more evidence that there are long-term effects from this. And there's beginning to be some evidence now that antibodies don't last very long. And they think some people are getting a second infection, which can be worse than the initial infection. Plus, there's starting to be some concern of a second strain, like with the flu changing every year, that this could be a second strain of COVID, which could get you. So the vaccines may have to be injected several times a year, and you may have to get different kinds each year. And they still have to prove that it works. And a lot of times the vaccines might only work 50 or 60% of the time. And a lot of people are anti-vaxxers now. So if you get only half the population and then it only works half the time, oy.
Yeah.
I hate to sound so depressing, but I think this is maybe a longer term thing than we all want.
Well,
you know?
I suggest we, continue trying to do what is the safest thing for our members and for the general public, and I don't think we really know what the medical future holds. So hopefully it will be on the positive side rather than the negative side. But I don't see too much point in worrying about it until it happens. I don't think anyone's going to be breaking down our door to get into Stargate in February. So I mean, I just can't. I might have to get special dispensation from Riyadh to start going on my own, because I really need to get back in there. But
if anybody has been trained and can use the telescope, you can go on your own, of course, or with your own family. That's okay. We just can't, this time at least, can't bring club members together. That's all.
Yeah, I'll have to wait my turn a couple years then. The good news is there are phase 3 trials that are being announced that are going on with these viruses. So, there's some real life tests. Hopefully, good news comes out of that. We're all awaiting that, and the glass half full, half empty. We're not even sure what's in the glass. We're all hoping it's water or a cure. Well, you catch the common cold every year. Before this all happened, we'd all get sick. We'd all catch cold. I can say from my experience, it's the first time that I've gone such a long stretch of time without catching something.
Yeah.
So there's some.
That's for sure.
For that doubting about how well masking works and social distancing works. Well,
I would say the trade-off of not being able to do anything has not been worth it for me, but I definitely have gotten fewer colds. So,
yeah, I may have taken more risks than any of you because I've been in bowling alleys. Nothing yet, but I check. I have an oximeter. I check every day. I have my thermometer around here somewhere on this desk. It's a daily routine to check my numbers, because if I'm going to go where the public is, I got to make sure that I'm still, that nothing's happening. So I've got to be on it a lot more than normal. It's not fun, but it's my choice.
I'm officiating volleyball right now at the high school level, and the protocols are very, 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 very strict. We have situations where you have a game ball that is thrown out after each play, and there's people on the sidelines, there are ball retrievers that sanitize the ball and throw it back into play. Everybody's got to wear a mask. Even the officials, you can put your whistle underneath your mask, or you can use an electronic whistle. And you are distances. They don't change benches between games. There's so many protocols you just can't even imagine. Everybody is required to wear a mask in the gymnasium, and the players are only allowed to have 2 spectators each in their games.
That's actually, it's a surprise, because no spectators I would expect.